So a number of years ago, when the Lord just really started speaking to me about what worship was, I was really spending a lot of time with God and saying, God, what is worship? Why do we do this? Why do I get on a stage every Sunday morning and sing and lead other people? And because there's a whole lot of ideas out there about what worship is, and there's a lot of ideas about what worship is not. So I just began to seek the Lord, and the Lord began to just speak things to me, what worship is, what worship isn't. And he would take me into His Word, and then just through certain circumstances in my life. And I began to learn a lot, and I just want to hit a couple things here that the Lord spoke to me and said, worship is this, worship is not this. So the first couple things that the Lord said to me is, number one, Aaron, worship is not simply music. And that really hit me the first time the Lord spoke that to me, because at that point in my life, worship was singing songs in church on Sunday. To me, worship was the CD rack at a Christian bookstore. That's what worship was to me. And the Lord spoke to me and He said, Aaron, your paradigm of what worship is, it's simply in this box of music, and you got to get outside of that. And that really just started to change my thinking completely from what worship is. The second thing that the Lord said to me is Aaron, also, worship is not simply a style of music or a specific art form. God said to me, He said one day, He said, Aaron, I created all the arts. Whether it's theater or whether it's painting or whether it's music or whatever it is, I created all of the arts. And I created all of them as an avenue for you to just pour your creativity through that and worship me through those different art forms. And that really messed me up again. Third thing that the Lord said is, Aaron, worship's not an event that you attend. And this is where the Lord really started speaking to me about lifestyle in worship. That worship is not just an event that we attend on Sundays because it's on our calendar or because it's in our date book for the day, but He really started speaking to me about lifestyle. And then the fourth thing, which was a major thing to me, is the Lord said to me, Aaron, worship does not depend on the atmosphere. And when the Lord spoke this, I really began to ask the Lord, well, God, what do you mean by that? And He began to walk me through several different things that really spoke to me as far as worship doesn't set the atmosphere, but if you lift up your voice in any circumstance, worship can change the atmosphere, and it can set the atmosphere. First thing that happened is I remember some good friends of ours. I had good friends in Charlotte, North Carolina. The husband suddenly found out that he had cancer. His body was literally just filled with cancer. He had a wife and some small children. We were friends with them, and to make a long story short, he passed away. He lost the battle with cancer, even though we prayed and prayed and prayed for him. And I was devastated. Our whole church family was devastated. But as I stood on the platform at his funeral and began to sing songs, which was hard for me to do, looking at his wife and his small children on the front row, something completely happened and changed in that room when that wife lifted up her hands and lifted up her voice, and suddenly she's at the altar of that church with her husband's casket right in front of her, and she is dancing and she is shouting to the Lord and she's worshiping the Lord and lifting up her voice to Him. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in that room changed. Not because it was a great day. It was a horrible day. But when a wife who was grieving lifted up her voice to the Lord and she worshiped Him despite her circumstance, the atmosphere in the room changed. And all of a sudden, the presence of the Lord rushed in, and it was a worship service. It wasn't a funeral anymore. So God spoke these first four things to me. And then all of a sudden, He said, now Aaron, here's what worship is. Worship isn't these things, but what worship is, well, first of all, I started looking at the word itself. Worship is two words. It's an English word called, one is worth, and the second is ship. And those two words put together mean to ascribe to someone or something. To ascribe to someone who is truly there and who is truly worthy. When I first read that, I thought, man, that's a good word. That's an English word, and we picked a good one. We ascribe to our Heavenly Father because He really is there and He really is worthy. So then the word ascribe kind of jumped out to me, and I said, Lord, what's this word mean? And I began to dig through the word. And I got to Psalm 29, And I found this word in the Word. It says, ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. And I found that word in the Word, and then I began to dig into what that word means. And it literally means this, to give or to acknowledge. That absolutely revolutionized my thought process of lifting up my voice to the Lord. Because I've walked into several church services before where I'm about to lift up my voice and I'm about to worship the Lord, and my paradigm, my frame of mind was, I need something from God today, so I'm going to church and I'm going to lift up my voice and I'm going to walk out with something. Well, when we ascribe to the Lord, what we're saying is, God, I'm here to give to you. I'm here to acknowledge you. I'm not here to get, I'm here to give because you're good and because you're holy. That's what worship really is. Worship isn't us walking into a service because we need this and we need that and we've got to get this and we've got to get that from God. But we walk into a worship service and we lift up our voice and we ascribe to the Lord with the sole purpose of giving to Him and acknowledging to Him. That's what that mother did that day. That's what that wife did that day. She walked into her husband's funeral service with her small children, and she said, God, I'm here to give to you. I'm here to acknowledge you because you're still holy and you're still worthy. That changed my life. And I promise you, since I really got this into my heart, ever since the day that I first saw this and I started walking into times of worship with the idea that, God, I'm not here to get, I'm here to give, and I'm here to acknowledge you. Ever since I started lifting up my voice with that heart, I have never walked out of a worship service empty again. Because when I walk in, I give to the Lord, I acknowledge Him. He absolutely pours right back into me, and I never leave again empty, but I'm always full.